Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about who you should name as your executor. Okay, so whether you use the website we've created and all of the information and the material on that website to handwrite your own will kind of quickly and easily, or whether you go hire a law firm or attorneys to do that for you, when you get your estate legal program in place, you're going to have a will and you're going to name an executor. So some people get a little hung up on who they should appoint as executor. So this video should help you to decide how to fill that role as your executor. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to go over typically who's named the executor, and then I want to jump back into the typical duties that the executor, has to do, and that might help you determine who would be the best executor in your circumstances. And then finally, I'm going to talk about some of the other roles that sometimes people confuse executor with. All right, who's typically the executor? Well, if you're married, it's typically you name your spouse as the executor, and we'll get into some of the roles in a minute. So that's kind of an easy one. It's not always the spouse, but it typically is. All right. If you're not married, if you're single and you have adult children, it's usually one of the children as the executor or two or more children as co-executors. We'll come back into that in a minute, but that's typically what we see when we have a single person with adult children. All right, and then if you have minor kids, again, if you're married, you'll appoint your spouse as your executor, and you'll name a backup as the backup or alternate executor. And that's typically, maybe it's your mother or your father or your brother or your sister or some other trusted friend and relative. And again, as we get into the role and duties of the executor, maybe that might help you define, who's the right person for the job. Okay, so let's get into what that role of the executor is going to be. Sometimes when somebody dies, they have accounts in their name that are frozen. Someone needs to get access to those funds. Someone needs to continue paying the mortgage, the car bills, while all of this stuff is getting, car notes, while all of this stuff is getting settled. So what an executor does when they fill that role is they typically go through a process to get what's called confirmed as the executor. The will is determined valid. Paperwork is issued, what's called confirming that the executor is the executor. And then often what that executor does is, in some circumstances, when it's necessary, they'll open an estate account at a bank or a financial institution. And if there are any frozen accounts, they'll have the ability to take the funds that are in those frozen accounts and move them into an estate account so that bills can be paid and things can be handled while this process is going on. And ultimately, the funds in that estate account will get dispersed, to the heirs. In addition, the executor, when it's necessary and when it's appropriate, is going to be the one who may sell your home if that's appropriate, sell your vehicle or vehicles if that's appropriate, sell investments if that's appropriate. So things can get settled, debts can get paid, and assets can be dispersed to your heirs. Some people get hung up on this, oh my gosh, who do I appoint as the executor? I've talked to a lot of parents who've said, oh, I have 3 children, I kind of feel like I should appoint the oldest, but he might get offended if I appoint our middle child, our daughter, who quite frankly is a little more responsible and has her stuff together, and I just don't know what to do. Should I appoint one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them? What do I do? So if you're at a point where who to pick is really keeping you from getting your will done and your legal affairs in order, here's a couple of things you can do. One, you can talk to them and From 30 years of doing this, when I see parents go talk to their adult children about this, and then they come back and report to me how those conversations went, I'll say something like, well, did you, I know you were nervous and worried about who you should designate as the executor in your will. You didn't want to appoint one because you thought you might offend the others, but you felt like this one was appropriate. When you talk to your children, you know, what did they say? Usually the parents tell me when they broach the subject with their children, the children say something like, oh heck, just do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to us. So the bottom line is just kind of make a decision. You can always change it. That's the beauty when you use our website and all the materials and information there. If, 3 months down the road, a year down the road, you change your mind, you can always go back and redo or rewrite your will to incorporate any new information that you may have obtained. But a couple of other things. So in every will, I would say there's an executor and there's an alternate executor, especially if your spouse is your first executor. Because your spouse, roughly maybe the same age roughly as you. So there's a chance that your spouse could pass away before you. So you'd want to make sure you have that alternate executor in place. And again, you can always change it if something happens to some of these people. All right, so a couple of points I want to make about the executor, though, is the executor has zero ability to change how your things will go. Maybe you say, I want everything to go to my 3 children equally, and I appoint my oldest child as the executor. Your executor can't say, you know what, I'm the executor. We're not doing 3 ways equally. I'm getting half, and my 2 siblings are each getting 25%. An executor can't do anything like that. They're bound to follow, the instructions that you put in the will. So executor can't change your intent or how you want to leave things behind. And then also sometimes the executor role gets confused with other roles. So let me just real quick. Other roles that you may be designating when you get your estate legal program in place are, number 1 is power of attorney. Power of attorney is who's going to handle stuff for you and make decisions while you're alive, but illness or injury, you're incapacitated and you can't sign your name and make your own decisions. The executor's role is different from the power of attorney. Power of attorney handles things for you while you're alive. The executor's role doesn't start until you pass away, and then it's just a kind of a temporary role from the time that you die until the assets are taken out of your name and put into the names of the heirs. Some people confuse the executor role with the guardian of your minor children, so that's another designation that you'll make. If you have minor children, you'll want to designate that guardian or that backup parent or whatever that role, however that role is defined by your state law. But again, that's a different role than executor. And then the last role sometimes people confuse executor with is the trustee. Maybe you're a parent and you have children who are minors or young adults, and you leave your estate to a trust for those young people that will last for maybe several years. And so you'll name a trustee of that trust, which may last for years, maybe for decades, depending upon how it's set up. That's a different role than the executor, who's, again, executor is more of a temporary role from the date you die until stuff gets taken out of your name and put into the names of the heirs or the trusts or whatever case may be. All right, so that should give you some guidance on, and kind of my hope is that this video can prevent really everybody from getting hung up and delaying on getting their will done because they need to make an executor decision. All right, so go out there, make sure you take care of your business, and we'll see you on the next video.